Welcome back to another discussion with here on the couch with the Compasstree crew on the couch. So today we're going to be talking about some of the trending news is glitter boobs. So one of the things this was an incident that happened in New Zealand. If you haven't already heard about it, a girl was going to a concert wearing kind of a glittery paste stuff over her chest. And she's groped at this concert, and so it became like a real controversial issue. And so as a group of therapists, we just thought this was a very keen topic to talk about, you know, our bodies and you know, groping and our human sexuality and, you know, our fashion and everything like that. So, you know, here we are. I'm Dr. Sean Lester, one of the therapists here at Compasstree Counseling.
I'm Mary Frank. I'm another therapist. I specialize in relationship and sex therapy.
And I am Carolyn Robistow, and I am an intern here at Compasstree.
So what was y'all's initial reactions to glitter boobs?
Just like the idea in general of glitter boobs. I thought it was pretty cool. I like glitter, and I know there's been a lot going on as far as like body paint on, there's a TV show, I can't remember the name of it at the moment, but it's like a bunch of people who do body painting, and it's a competition, and it's really an amazing...
Body wars?
Maybe.
Something like that.
I can't remember the name, but anyways, the point is that they are...
That it's art.
It's art.
Or it's a skill to make it look.
Yes, yeah. It's more than just a naked person with paint on. It really is an art form, and some of the things that they can do with it was just amazing from when I watched the show. So when, in my mind, the glitter boob is kind of just an expansion of that. It's like the body paint, just adding some sparkle, and I like sparkle, so I thought it was pretty cool.
When you first said this, I hadn't heard about this. This was news to me. So, but what it made me think of was back. I mean, it had to have been maybe in the 90s. I don't know. But Sports Illustrated even did their swimsuit issue was all body paint, and that's just what popped into my head from it. So it's certainly not a new, you know, phenomenon. It just seems to be getting more publicity these days and becoming more mainstream for people.
Yeah, I think the glitter boob issue, this particular controversy had to do more probably with groping
Behavior.
and you know, like so if you're wearing more revealing clothes or more risque stuff, does that give people permission then to grope you or, you know, touch you? Or because I don't know, like I so there's that side of it, but then there's this, you know, is it art? You know, I mean, that's always in the eye of the beholder. And then, you know, the other issue is like decency. You know, It's like, you know, if you have like a, you know, when you're at a concert and it's all grown-ups or, you know, whatever, you know, however you want to fly your freak flag, you go for it, right?
Right.
But like, I guess my concern is like, you know, is
like at the grocery store.
Yeah, you know, glitter paint, and, you know, or something, you know, like your school teacher shows up at, you know, teaching class and body paint. I mean, you know, where's the line drawn, or should there be a line drawn, or, you know, any of that stuff. So that's some of the things we'll probably talk about, you know, in the video today.
Right. So, I mean, to touch on the part as far as like the sexual harassment, sexual assault, in reference to the glitter boob, I personally am a strong believer that no one asks for any of those things to happen. No matter what you wear, no matter what you look like, it is not okay for someone else to overstep their boundary and do something without consent. Consent is a big deal to me.
Yeah.
So if there is not consent there, it shouldn't be happening, period. I don't care if you're walking around naked at a nudist beach, you shouldn't be touched unless you have consent. And the same thing goes for verbal. You know, you shouldn't be talking to someone in an inappropriate way unless there's consent there.
Yeah.
So
I think that consent is a key piece. I think you're right. that's all I have on that.
I mean, that's very valid because I agree that, like respecting people's boundaries, their personal boundaries. Like why does what the person wearing make a difference, you know?
Well, it's almost like people want to argue that by wearing a certain thing, you are somehow stating publicly what your boundary is, but I don't think that that's the case. I don't think that an appearance can also define a boundary.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I feel things like our clothing, you know, wardrobe, things we choose to wear, how we style our hair, makeup, those are all things that we use to express ourselves as an individual, but it doesn't mean, yes, I do want this, or yes, I don't want that. Those are things that need to be communicated verbally.
What about looking? Because you're wearing glitter, that it tends to draw people's attention, no matter where you're glittery at.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just trying to define. You know, so I totally agree with you as far as like personal boundaries. No matter what you're wearing, I mean, no one should ever touch you, no matter what. But what about like people like ogling you? Is that the right word? Ogle?
Well, like we were saying earlier, like the whole "my eyes are up here," that type of thing.
Yeah.
Well, I think to some extent, there are gonna be some things that if something's sparkling at me out of the corner
It's
of my
eye
eye,
catching.
I'm gonna turn and look, what is this that's sparkling at me? And then when I realize it's a glitter boob, I might be like, oh, that's cool, and then continue about my business. I think there's a difference between noticing something and glancing at it and sitting there and staring and making it
Or
very
ogling,
obvious
or
and
whatever word it was.
uncomfortable. Or ogling,
Yeah, googling.
Google.
Staring. We'll call it staring.
Staring. Right, so I think that there's a very big difference there. It's one thing to notice something, it's
Mhm.
another thing to sit there and make it very uncomfortable for the other person staring at them. Or maybe they don't even notice,
Yeah.
but,
Cause that one's like.
Well, it's hard to
tricky
say where is the line, because I feel like the line will be different for different people.
Because you know, I'm a people watcher by nature, so I mean, I could sit at the mall and just watch different people. So, you know, there may just be, you know, it's nothing sexual. It's just more, you know, there's something about that person seems interesting. So I don't know, but I could see myself in a situation because that's, you know, glitter boobs is not something you see every day. So I could see myself checking that out more, not intending it to be sexually harassing or intending it to be even sexual, just that, holy cow, there's somebody not wearing a shirt with glitter. You just don't see that every day.
right.
So I don't know, because obviously a person wearing that is looking, I'm assuming, looking for some attention. I don't know.
Well, I feel
Is that-
like,
is that
now
a
I feel like
stereotype?
we've mixed this context of the mall and the glitter boob. And if you're gonna be wearing a glitter boob to a mall, that's one thing, versus like a music festival where they're having it done at the festival, there's like booths where this is the thing, you know. So then I think it goes back to the idea of the workplace and knowing situationally what is appropriate and what is not, which I think is kind of a basic social skill.
I would agree with you on that. You know, like I said before, everyone has the right to wear what they want to wear, to express themselves differently.
Yeah.
But there are certain situations where things may be more appropriate or not so much appropriate. And I would also look at, like you're saying, if someone's wearing something like that in a situation where maybe it's not as appropriate, what would be the intention and motivation behind it versus someone who are going to a festival or maybe a nightclub or something like that where it would be more appropriate, you'd see more people dressed like that. If that
It would
makes-
fit the culture of that space,
Right.
whereas a school teacher, it would not.
How do we define those kinds of things, though? I mean, I'll be honest, because, you know, maybe I'm more old-fashioned in my, you know, because I go to church and I'll see girls and guys wearing clothes that I think, God, those are very inappropriate for church. But does that just me being very old fashioned? Because I guess at some level, we were talking about this earlier, is I think there's nothing wrong with the human body, so if we all just decide, hey, the clothes are just ridiculous, we live in Houston, it's a great climate, and I'm just gonna be a nudist, you would not be able to get away with that. I mean, people, it'd be so controversial, but that's more based on the people receiving, or not the viewers of it, rather than me, the person. That's their hang up,
Right.
And so I guess I don't know what when we talk about what's proper in certain settings, what is that?
Right.
I don't know.
And I think that's gonna be individual for everyone. Like you said, you might go to church and see someone who is dressed in a way that you feel is maybe too casual, or I don't know. So for you, that's not something that you would do, but for them, that might be something that's perfectly okay. So again, with the individual expression, I think it's gonna be different for everyone. If it's not a problem for you, I'm a believer that it's not a problem, unless it's putting someone at harm or yourself at harm. If you're okay with it, it's not an issue, then why make it into something bigger? So if someone's fine going to the mall dressed in a way that maybe another person might feel is too provocative or inappropriate for that setting, that's okay. You're welcome to feel that way. You have a right to those feelings and those beliefs. It's not you dressing like that, it's someone else. And then it gets to the point where you're letting someone else influence how you feel on something, and it's not even directly related. But to bring it kind of back around to what you said as far as the human body and making it such a sexual thing, I think that really has a lot to do with the media and society today, because the human body is a natural thing. I mean, there's nothing wrong with our bodies the way we are, with nudity. It's just driven into such a place where it's seen as only a sexual object that I feel so many people now become offended if they were to see anything. I might have gone off on a complete tangent there, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's such a tricky thing.
So I think that it's, to, I guess, answer the original question, where's the boundary, when is something appropriate, when is something not appropriate? That's going to be a decision for each individual person. And everyone may not be comfortable with that.
Because I guess, part of my practice is, working with guys who, have backgrounds with porn addiction and, sex addiction and things like that. And, I think traditionally, men are typically more visually stimulated and stuff. And so I always just kind of am curious, how guys, when, they're just out in the world, especially ones struggling with, those kind of issues, how they, how glitter boobs or other, more revealing clothes impacts them. And like I said, the person wearing whatever they want to wear is one thing. It's just, guys in those situations, they probably need to, instead of complaining about what other people are wearing, self-regulate themselves. And it's I guess I'm just thinking, if one of my clients said, hey, I was at this club and, this girl was wearing, glitter boobs and it was really difficult for me. My response to them would be well, don't bash the lady wearing that. Leave the club. If it's your personal issue and people are dressing that way at a venue or whatever, or anywhere, you can, one, not look at it, and B, leave.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I agree with you. The only person that we can control is ourselves. So if something's making you uncomfortable, if you don't like it, if you know something is a trigger for you and that's specific example, then what are the steps that you can take to get to a place where it's safe to make yourself more comfortable without putting yourself or others at risk of harm?
Good point. Anything else?
Not for me.
So I think the glitter boob is something that is, in my opinion, it can be seen as a form of art, maybe an extension of body painting. I think that for me personally, I do feel like it might be more appropriate for certain settings, but that doesn't mean that's gonna fit for everyone. And I do feel like each individual should have the right to their own expression, and that society has put a lot onto the human body and looking at it as a sexual being instead of a natural, beautiful thing, which I feel that it is. So that's really where I stand. I support the glitter boob. I think that it's really cool, and I think that hopefully as a society we will be able to progress and move forward and really understand where consent lies and not blame the victim, blame the person who were to act upon things that's inappropriate.
So I'm gonna just flip this just a little differently. Does it matter if it's glitter boobs, but what if it's glitter balls? And guys are out exposing themselves and stuff like that. Does that make any difference?
So I think that also kind of goes back to this idea that our body is only seen as a sexual thing, right? Because then that puts us back in, well, balls are bad, we can't see balls because that's sexual. I mean, I'd like to see some glittery balls. I'd be okay if it's going on as a form of art. I think that would be cool to see in the right place, again, in the right environment.
Yeah.
It's not something that I would stare at. But if someone wanted to express themselves that way, more power to them.
Or glitter buns?
Yes. I think when I was looking at the picture of the glitter boobs, I saw some glitter buns. Yeah.
Because I do think, because, it's easy for me to go to that place of, a woman's body is very, beautiful and, artistic and stuff. And I guess being a guy, like, if other men were expressing themselves in that same way, it's probably my own personal bias, but I just see them differently. I'm thinking, because I could see a woman going, oh, that's very artistic and a beautiful thing. She's expressing her sexuality. And I see a guy and I'm like, that guy's just being gross. Put your stuff up. So, I know me personally, obviously as society we have a long way to
A
go.
bunch of double standards.
Yeah.
Well, the thing that I keep thinking about is the idea of whose comfort and rights are going to be more important in this situation. So even thinking about the person, if you see something that makes you uncomfortable, you have every right to get up and leave. But do you also have a right to stay there and be comfortable and ask that person to do something different? Like who, like you said, we're all in control of our own, we can only control our own decisions. But I think that's where it starts to get sticky society-wise, is because people will argue that, well, why should you be allowed to express yourself comfortably and I'm made to feel uncomfortable? And I don't mean, like, I'm not taking one side or the other, but I think that's where people get hung up in the conversation is, how does society decide, which is basically what the laws are, like, it would be nice if society didn't have to decide, but I feel like there are certain things that
Well, there have to be boundaries.
yeah. And so it then becomes this, whose comfort and whose right to expression or be in this place is going to be the more important one. And I think that, is unavoidable.
That's a really good point.
Because going back to the original situation with the glitter boobs, because this was in New Zealand, And from the article that I was reading, that they didn't have any like public indecency laws, so it wasn't ever even a legal issue.
Well, and truly, when I Googled it, the pictures that I saw of these glitter tops, I mean, some of them looked fancier than like Golden Globe Award dresses. Like, they were very full coverage. It was a ton of glitter. I'm like, I can't imagine what your bathtub looks like after trying to wash that off. But, you know, I didn't see anything that was even overly exposed, in my opinion. But I mean, a lot of it, I mean, it was just full coverage. So even then, it's like, now where are we drawing the line with how much skin is too much skin?
Right.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, because you're right, because I mean, it's not just that. I mean, you know, I always, you know, like there's, you know, yoga pants, and I mean, there's clothes, I mean, or clothes material, you know, that are, you know, virtually see-through or super skin tight, that very little is left to the imagination, and we're not all up in arms over all of that.
I feel like there was a problem with leggings as pants for a while. It was like we had it in the 80s, and then it went away, and then when it started to come back, people got on the whole leggings aren't pants things. But now enough people kept wearing leggings that now leggings are pants, you know, and then like the skinny jeans came in.
Mhm.
I just think, I feel like it's all really a cultural thing. Like whatever society is willing to accept at that time is kind of where we all sort of say, well, okay, that's just what we're gonna put up with right now, or that's what we're gonna allow, or
Right.
that's how I'm gonna assert my sexuality or my artistic expression, and I'm gonna push it until society decides to accept that that's what I'm doing.
Well, also, if you look at other countries, Europe, they have topless beaches, nude beaches, and really, you go to, I would say, many different beaches, even if it weren't labeled a topless or nude beach, and women don't have their tops on, or they're wearing the thong swimsuit bottoms, and it's not seen as inappropriate, it's not seen as sexual, it's just something
It's
that
also
they
not
do
seen as an
with their-
invitation.
Exactly, it's just cultural, it's part of the cultural aspect of
Well, let me
things.
ask you that, so, because I agree that, you know, there are cultures, I mean, you know, you can flip open almost any National Geographic and see, you know, cultures where, you know, where they, you know, the climate just kind of dictates that they wear very minimal, but, you know, they're caring for their children, men and women's body parts are exposed, and it's not a non-issue, because that's just not, it's almost like those body parts have been desexualized. So my question is that, so let's say we are a more progressive society and we start being more and more accepting of the human body, and you can, you know, like those taboos of what you can and cannot wear or expose go away. Will we lose some of our sexuality? You know, like,
I was gonna ask the same thing, like, does it then take away
right.
something mysterious or something that is intimate between two people, like, this is special, just between the two of us, I'm not
Right.
putting it out there for the world.
Yeah.
Like,
You're
you're the sex therapist,
Yeah.
we're like, what do you think about that?
What is the right answer?
Yeah.
So, as far as sex goes, there is so much that goes into having a happy, healthy sexual intimacy with your partner. And the visual of it is minimal compared to all of the other things that go into it. So, does that have an aspect for some people? Absolutely, sure it does. Especially those people who want to save themselves for marriage, to have that one special partner. But with everything else that goes into sex emotionally, from an emotional standpoint, I feel that there can still be very pleasing and intimate moments between you and your partner, even if we get to a point in society and in culture that it's okay to just be open and free with the human body. I mean, that would be my response.
Yeah. I haven't watched the movie, but we have this like men's supervision group that it's other male therapists that all meet together, and one of the other therapists brought up this movie, was it Don John, or the main character is like a porn addict.
Yeah,
Is that the name of it, Don John?
I believe so. I haven't seen that one, but
I
I know
haven't
which
seen
one
it,
you're
but-
talking about.
He was just explaining it, but kind of going to what you were saying is that, you know, this guy's journey was, you know, he, you know, just objectified women and all this stuff, and it was like really, the show is about this journey of him, and he got involved with a lady, and, you know, she refused to have sex with him at one point just because she was like, you're not even connected like on an intimacy level, and so he has this experience, of, you know, true intimacy with her later in the film, I guess. And I think that that's probably the real key thing. So it's like, you know, whether we become really acculturated to nudity and we're okay with it, like you said, I think obviously our sex lives will be fine because the bottom line is always about, you know, that personal intimacy.
Right.
The connection.
It's about the connection. And if you think of it from the standpoint of couples who have been together for many, 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 many years, I mean, they've seen the same nude, naked body for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, but those people can still have very satisfying, enjoyable sex lives with their
And
partner.
experiment with glitter.
And experiment with glitter and learn new ways to spice things up. I mean, sex is something that it's a continuation of learning how to communicate better with your partner. What are things that feel good to you? What are things that feel good to them? Everyone has this idea that it's just, sex just happens and it's so easy. But really, it's very complex. And so I would not be concerned about that, not one bit, if nudity became something that was very open in society.
So I would probably go as far as to say is those cultures that have more freedom as far as their bodies are concerned, those cultures.
I would call it less shame.
Yeah, and I bet that they
Yeah.
have more satisfying sex lives because of that
Because
lack of
there's
shame.
less shame, yeah.
Yep, I would agree with you, because there wouldn't be the hookups that we have as far as what we look like and, you know, the fear, or maybe even embarrassment behind it. You're able to be more free, that anxiety goes away, so you're able to enjoy the moment versus thinking about, well, do I look as good as the last partner or whatever.
Oh, that would be very freeing, not have to have like body hang-ups.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yes, it would.